Welcome to the Schneps Media Cannabis Industry Power Players Series. I am with Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes. She was the champion for this bill that recently passed to make cannabis legal here in New York State. So welcome to the show, Assemblywoman. We'd love to hear your perspective on what's going on in this crazy world we live in.
Crazy world is, my new mantra is, as difficult as it is, life is still good and God is still good. So we just plug along and make as many things happen as we can through the process.
That's right. Celebrate each win, right?
Exactly.
So go ahead, tell us about this legislation, your experience working on it, what it means, and how it's going to play out in 2022. I know people are hopeful that maybe we can get some rules and regs going this year, but I guess if you're being realistic, it might take a little bit longer than this session.
Well, first of all, let me say I am not a consumer. I don't even think people should actually smoke, but honestly, I do know that a lot of people do. And in the state of New York, it's one of the largest markets, not just in the country, but in the world. And I'm also, representative of a people and a district that have been totally criminalized around this plant that everybody uses. Mm-hmm. And I saw the destruction. I've lived it in communities. I've seen the destruction in people's lives. I've seen the destruction in families. I've seen children being placed into foster care. I've seen children being raised without their families. And all of that destruction, in my estimation, not only destroys the lives of people, but it actually really expands the cost of government. And at some point, I think we have to deal with these sort of things in a more real fashion. And for me, that was the motivation to legalize a product that many people use. And at the same time of legalizing it, it began expunging the records of people who had been previously incarcerated in a mass way, particularly in Black and Brown communities. So my motivation was a little different than most people's motivation for wanting to see marijuana legalized. But I think having done that, what we've been able to do here is to create a new industry that will become above ground. And in doing that, it will allow people, many of the people who had previously been incarcerated as a result of it and or had their lives and community destroyed because of it, have opportunities to begin creating generational wealth. And so for me, the legislation was more about how do we fix the lives and repair the damage that was created by the war on drugs. And so I think we've got a good intentional perspective on that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Now I'm in New York City. I know you're more upstate, so I'm sure you visited some of these farms where they're actually growing cannabis. And what's that like?
Well, as you know, the hemp plant is legal federally. So a lot of people have been growing hemp for quite a while. There are people who are also growing marijuana because of the medical marijuana industry that's already been flourishing in the state of New York. And so, it's a plant. And it's a plant that we are now realizing more than ever. And I think we'll see it more in the future as a result of the legislation that's going to require resources to be put into researching the real possibilities for this plant, not just as its medicinal value, but for its hemp's industrial value and the value that can be added to our economy and its community building, you name it. I think the possibilities are endless. So it is exciting. I have been to a lot of these farms. Mm-hmm. I have talked to people who have been farming hemp for a while and woke up one day and their whole property was surrounded by law enforcement because they thought what they saw from the air was literally the marijuana plant, but it was not. It was actually the hemp plant. So there's still a lot of work to do around making people understand that this is a legal plant. And hopefully when the control board, which I'm very pleased with Governor Hochul's appointment of that control board so swiftly upon her installation as being the first woman governor in the state of New York, because that is going to move us forward with putting forward the policies and the regulations as well as the licensing structure. And quite honestly, just to pat ourselves on the back a little bit, we're New Yorkers. Senator Krueger and I have been studying this issue for like the last 8 years. Many people who work with the control board and or are staffing the agency have been studying this issue for a while. So I don't think it will take us as long as most other entities have taken to put those regulations in place.
Okay, well, that sounds a little bit hopeful then.
Yeah, I'm very encouraged.
Is there anything else you want viewers to know about cannabis or about your role or anything that, people should take away for common knowledge?
Well, I think there's if you look at what other states and quite frankly countries have done, they have not been intentional around the equity portion of the business. Senator Krueger's legislation and the legislation that she and I passed is very intentional about equity. And so we fully intend that day one, people who are right now in the legacy market will have opportunities to become above ground on the first day of licenses being able to be submitted. I'm encouraged by that. I have been meeting with and talking with people, not just in the great city of Buffalo, but across the state of New York, who are in the legacy market, and they are ready to process this application so that they can become a legalized business. And there are people in the business all across the country, and there are a lot of them. I've probably met most of them, the big players. They've been in my office in Buffalo, or they've been in my office in Albany. And with all due respect to them, I respect their positions, but my intentions for this legislation was about the legacy market and New Yorkers, New York farmers, New York small crafters, New York chefs, New York people who want an opportunity to create a new job for themselves and their families. And I am excited about what the potential is. And I know that this is only going to get better.
Great, fabulous. Congratulations on being named one of our cannabis industry power players, Majority Leader, Assemblywoman Crystal Peoples-Stokes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'm honored to be on your list.